Hi everybody, welcome to my quick review of Barmills Scale Model Works Wicked Wonders, one of their most famous or infamous model kits. Let's get going. So here is the completed set for Wicked Wonders. Just go slowly to do a 360, and this is the completed model on a MDF board with a small diorama. So I just wanted to show a few more details. The weathered sides and buildings, broken window frames, very much trying to give it a dilapidated look. I actually used tissue paper for the curtains, and I really wanted an effect of a really well used rundown house. So this is Wicked Wonders from the outside, and what I've done is actually studied the plans and realized that after building everything, they would actually give me an opportunity to have one wall, this one, which didn't have any external structures attached to it, staircase or an additional shed or something like this. So I made up my mind pretty early in the build to have an interior that of course is not part of the instructions, so everything is imagined, and then trying to actually figure out a way in which I could actually easily access that interior to build it and then to be able to show it off. There's some stuff here that probably shouldn't describe too much. There's a cupboard here which sort of hides a scene, and there's obviously a curtain here that's been put there in place for a reason. That's because there's some other business going on in the background. I had in my mind to actually make this into a haunted place, and I actually experimented with, I had, you'd see, headless Icho figures, and I even was trying to experiment using matte medium to do a ghost, and it actually was going quite well, and that sort of explains why you would see the building in such a state, almost in a state of abandonment and disrepair. The tissue papers that I had used for the curtains were always meant to be really simulate old lace curtains that have long been abandoned. As I was painting the structure, I almost even got a face of a skull here with the nose, the mouth, and 2 eyes here. So what happened? Well, to be honest, it kind of got a little bit too realistic for my liking, and about 2 weeks into the project, I felt that maybe what started out as a fun Halloween side project was kind of starting to take almost a too realistic and sinister turn. And I figured that the citizens, the hardworking residents of my layout would probably appreciate or not appreciate a haunted place, and they'd probably appreciate an establishment of some other kind. I'd say Wicked Wonders is one of the most famous kits that you can get from Barmills. I believe it was one of the earliest kits that they had ever put out for sale. It's obviously done really well for them, and I think after all these years, it's still a very, very good looking building. Yeah, I mean, I really like it. It's simple and yet pretty unique. You get a really nice combination of 2 floors, you get really nice rooftops, you get a nice little walkway here. Having said that, I would say that it does seem to be a bit of a challenge in terms of the build. There is another fellow reviewer on YouTube whom I highly respect, and I watch many of his builds, and he was building an HO version of this kit. And he actually seemed to have a lot of challenges in the build process, simply because of the instructions. This one was not easy to comprehend. So to be honest, this kit was easy for me to put together because of previous experience, and I was actually just going through plain sight in terms of parts, because the parts are pretty straightforward and you can actually see that from their instructions here. The problem is some of the instructions and the details they give you tend to take on more of a narration form. I wanted to show this to you so you can actually see what I mean here. They would say, begin by removing the stairway stringer support part C and B from sheet P32NSA. Note that the parts layout diagram 2 marks X location where these parts will be on a flat surface. Take part C, turn it upside down. So there's no reference to a photograph at all. You're imagining all of this in your mind. And the other part is you're basically having to go back and forth the instructions, right? There are some photos, but the photos all come at the end. And for some reason, again, I think this goes back to the history of this kit. They haven't even labeled the part boards just in simple numbers, like just 1 2 3 4 5. You be going from BW2 to P32NS, and then they'll direct you to P64NS, and that can get pretty confusing. Now, just 2 more things I wanted to point out about the build is the construction of the roof. That was a little bit challenging because when you assemble these 2 pieces together, they actually leave quite a large gap and quite a large angle, so you will need to sandpaper them together. Again, not a problem, but for someone who's new to this hobby, new to Craftsman kits, just bear that in mind because that is something you have to do. The other thing I want to point out is that when you look at my builds and you look at these particular structures here that I'm zooming into, you'd see that they look pretty interesting, where I have bricks to actually support each of these pieces of wood that's then supporting the walkway. Now, that was not done out of accident. As you can see from my other photographs, I was actually following their instructions and leaving ample space in the board to actually ensure that the pieces would actually fit. Unfortunately, after the build, they didn't, and all of these structures, all these wood structures that support the walkway, were a little bit too short to actually fit the walkway on top, and therefore I had to improvise. So I hope you enjoyed this review, critique, sharing process of the Barmills Wicked Wonders. Feel free to ask me any questions if you do have them in the comments, or send me a note. Thank you for your time. Appreciate you watching this, and I hope this was helpful for you. Have a good day ahead. See ya.